Fire Emblem Engage is as close to a perfect Fire Emblem game as you can get without putting in twice the work. It has everything you love about the older games and none of what you hate, if that's how you want to play it, anyways. It also has the things you hate. The game has a nearly perfect array of options to customize your experience to exactly what you want it to be. From an easy story-driven game where everyone can live happily ever after to a nightmarish hellscape where one wrong move means your favorite character is dead or worse, you get fully soft-locked from completing the game because you're out of units. How much do you hate yourself? The aesthetics of the game is the first thing that I want to talk about because graphics are so 2010s. Every game can look photorealistic with enough money behind it. What matters now is the aesthetic, the type of world, the artwork. Fire Emblem Engage goes for bright anime-esque aesthetics with flashy attack animations and dialogue full of friendship and heart. If you ask me what I would most associate the game with, I would tell you the same thing that I've said during my playthrough of the game. Ruby by Monty Ohm. Rest in peace. Everything from the colors of the game to the way people talk and interact to the insanity of the attacks and the main character's cute pudgy cheeks makes me feel like if he were still around, Monty would have directed this game's artwork. It's gorgeous. One thing that can be off-putting, however, is despite the 3D models, the fact that the characters look at each other during cutscenes, etc., it's not actually showing the scene play out most of the time. Fire Emblem Engage is still presented as a visual novel despite its newfound 3D-ness, so it's a bit jarring to see Alear look at one of her allies and declare, "We're all surrounded!" while not seeing a single enemy on screen. I would have loved for them to put in the extra work to fully illustrate and model the cutscenes, but at the end of the day, Fire Emblem has always been presented as a visual novel, and that's really only occurred to me definitively during this playthrough. The voice acting is great, and also plentiful. I've seen people complain that it's cheesy, but I have a hard time agreeing with that. To me, it also comes off as very Ruby-esque. Is it this gritty war story about death and destruction and the turmoils of war? No, it's an anime. It's a story about friendship, coming into your own self and beliefs, and doing the right thing even when it's the polar opposite of your very nature. I feel like a lot of people who complain about the tone of the story and conversations miss that point. That said, there is a huge problem with character development in that there really isn't any. Every character has one note, and that's their thing. Jean is a healer who wants to fight, and that's what he talks about. Jade writes comedy stories and is a knight. Prepare for endless conversations about that. To be fair, I did not max every single connection, so I cannot definitively say that this is the case with every single person, but let's be real, it probably is. They aren't boring, but after you do Jean's third or fourth conversation, you pretty much know what the conversation's going to be about and where it's going. It's all well acted though. The music is great. Every area has different battle music, and some of the songs will get stuck in your head. Hello, Bright Sandstorm, and some of them will get you absolutely pumped. The Four Hounds Frenzy makes you feel like there's a lot at stake. The music is always subtle enough to not distract you, but important enough to keep you in the mood that you should be in. All in all, you'll want the volume on for this one, and headphones if you're on mobile. The combat is where Fire Emblem Engage truly shines. I mentioned in my early review that you can completely customize your experience, and that holds absolutely true to the end of the game. It's as hard or as easy as you want it to be, and can be very forgiving or absolutely punishing. If for some reason you get tired of the animations, you can turn those off. You can turn off staff animation. You can turn off engage animations. You can explore the Somniel after every chapter and fish, gather ingredients, make food, train, craft, etc. Or you can completely ignore it and just complete each chapter rapid fire one after the other. Well, if you're playing on normal mode. If you're on hard or maddening, you may want to consider doing those push-ups. Combat plays out very much like Fire Emblem has always played out in the franchise. You and your opponent takes turn moving on the map in various terrain complications, unit configurations, etc., and navigate the objective to claim victory. 99% of the time, that objective is a boss at the end of the stage or a rout the enemy scenario, and honestly, that's where the game is at its weakest. Old school Fire Emblem games in the franchise tend to have some variety on the maps in terms of objectives, and they were usually pretty interesting. Sure, destroy the commander mission where the general doesn't move and has a persistent buff from the terrain they're guarding aren't always the most fun, but it's a bit more interesting. Now, Engage is more or less designed with a casual mode in mind, and hard-hitting general with ranged attacks with plus 30% evasion just isn't as scary as it would have been in Sacred Stones, but the variety would have been appreciated. There are a couple of escape maps, but virtually no defense scenarios or endurance maps. A little more variety would have been nice, but the scale of the fights are super cool because of the game's titular feature. Engaging makes the fights feel huge. It always felt a little strange that Ike could fight an entire army by himself. It's never explained why they can be so strong, it's just the way it is. But thanks to the engage mechanic and plot point, it makes sense now. Yeah, your tiny army can fight swaths of enemies, but it makes more sense because they have these legendary spirits powering them up, plus a god is leading the charge. It also lets you customize your party to a crazy degree, as each character not only has a unique ability all their own, but can have their emblem's abilities plus 2 more that they purchase with SP. In addition to all that, they get class skills, weapon perks, you have the ability to upgrade weapons, and even enchant those weapons further to have more refined stats. The randomness of leveling can make it a bit tough to do what you want, but it's rare. As an example, my Anna got tons of growth in magic despite being a melee axe class, so I ended up making her a mage knight who could swing a high crit rate axe when needed. Meanwhile, my Diamant refused to get any decent growths and fell so far behind the rest of my army that I had to bench him. No 2 playthroughs of the game are going to be the same, which honestly gives it a ton of replayability. There's 2 entire mechanics I barely touched. There's a tower where you can get orbs to upgrade your emblem's unique weapons, and a gacha system where you can get other rings that themselves have unique passives and abilities. The only one of those that I got was a Sothis rank ring, which gave a unit who had it equipped a chance to reduce an enemy's health to 1 with a single attack. Thanks to this other ring system, you can set up custom challenges for yourself, like banning engage mechanics and only being allowed to wear the bond rings, thus opening new abilities and strategies while removing the most powerful mechanic from the game. I said it before, but this is your Fire Emblem. It is the game that you've been waiting for, whatever that is. That's not even getting into the various weapon types, the addition of a few new ones like fists, etc. Oh, and of course the emblems themselves are fully voiced and implemented into the story, including the DLC ones. So if you've missed Lynn, Ike, Roy, everyone else, you get a nice taste of them in game. Lastly is the story. It's fine. It's not groundbreaking, and if you've ever seen an anime or played a video game, you probably know everything that's going to happen well in advance. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Not every story has to totally subvert all expectations. It's just weird knowing that certain redacted events will happen several chapters in advance. Then the character you control is shocked by the revelation. I can't tell if it's just a weak writer who didn't know how to project plot points, or if they wanted the player to know this information in advance. It's never explicitly stated what any given plot point will be, but it's so heavily implied it's hard to get a read on the writer's intentions. Either way, the story is just good enough to keep you engaged, but you will likely be far more interested in the individual characters, one note as they may be. I think the game is great. It's the perfect Fire Emblem game. Any Fire Emblem fan who says they didn't enjoy Engage is not actually a Fire Emblem fan. It's exactly what you wanted, no matter what it is that you wanted. The worst part about the game is the concern that the game set such a high standard I can't imagine how the next one in the franchise could possibly improve on it. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. If you want to see the full playthrough of Fire Emblem Engage, it is here on my channel. My Fire Emblem was hard casual mode. What's yours? Leave a comment below, be sure to subscribe, and until next time, deuces dummies.